Okay, so we're going to talk about the two types of bone formation. And most of our bones start out as a hyaline cartilage model. And then that hyaline cartilage is turned into bone. And that type of bone formation is called endochondral ossification. So this is where we have a hyaline cartilage model. I'll put that in parentheses, model. And this is in the fetus, so this is during embryonic development. And then this is going to turn into a bone. So most of our bones, except for the flat bones, undergo endochondral ossification. So the flat bones have intramembranous ossification. So instead of starting out as hyaline cartilage, these start out as mesenchyme. So mesenchyme, remember, is the developmental precursor to all connective tissues. So we have mesenchyme, and this becomes ossified, and it turns into flat bones. So for example, like your skull bones, develop by intramembranous ossification. One of the really interesting thing about these flat bones is that there is still some of that membrane that has not become ossified when you are born. And so your bones in your skull can change shape a little bit, and those spaces are called fontanelles. And they allow for the baby, for example, to be able to come out, and its head kind of changes shape as it comes out through the female's pelvis. Sometimes babies' heads can change shape if they, like, for example, lay too much on their back. They can get flat back of the head, right? And eventually those bones are then going to fuse. Sometimes they don't fuse properly, and that becomes an issue because those soft spots between your flat bones are not as protective as like when they fuse and form what are called suture joints between the flat bones. Okay. So let's look at this process of endochondral ossification. So if we go and look at a diagram that shows this is intramembranous. So we'll go back to the endochondral ossification right here. Okay. When we look at this, it starts out blue. Right? That is hyaline cartilage. Where it is yellow, that is bone. And so we have what is called a bony collar forms first. So this is my bony collar. So the matrix of the hyaline cartilage, those chondrocytes turn into osteoblasts, and they start producing bony matrix. So this is my bony collar right there. Okay. Now in the center, this is going to become my diaphysis, right? So this is the shaft of my long bone. In the center, we have what is called the primary ossification center. So I'm going to write there. So this is my primary, I can't write this small, ossification center. So we have at the very ends of these bones, the epiphyses. And so this is going to be the epiphysis is at the end of the bone. Okay. Remember, it's kind of interesting, even in adult bones, the epiphyses are covered with hyaline cartilage, and that's where that hyaline cartilage originates from. So we start to get the formation of a medullary cavity. And this would be as the cells start to die in that space, that ossification center, it opens up and it forms the medullary cavity. And so this is the deteriorating cartilage. So we'll put deteriorating. This is from your book, cartilage is in the center, and that's going to become the cavity. So we have a blood vessel that enters the bone because bony tissue is vascularized. We have a bone bud that invades the cavities and actually starts to form the spongy bone. And so this right here is called the periosteal bud. And so that is a blood vessel. This is the periosteal bud. Okay. We have a secondary ossification center that is at the end. So this is my secondary ossification center. And so those cells, osteocytes or osteoblasts, start to lay down that matrix. I apologize for the quality of my printing. It's just not picking it up because it's so small. Okay. So notice that we have secondary ossifications in the epiphyses. And then what happens is that we get this development of what is called the growth plate or the epiphyseal plate. Oh my goodness, drive me nuts. Epiphyseal, what the heck? Okay, epiphyseal plate, there we go. Okay, that is going to be your growth plate. And so we'll look at this on x-rays, for example, of juveniles. They have, you can see where the growth plate is. And this is what is going to help in the elongation of the bones. So this endochondral ossification mechanism helps to explain why we have articular cartilage, why we have leftover cartilage that makes up the epiphyseal plate, and then the formation of that spongy bone where those buds, those blood vessels go into to form those areas. Okay, so this is in contrast to what we see within the, and I'm not going to try to write this out because it's just not working, but this is what we see in intramembranous. So we have these mesenchymal cells that are precursors that can form into the osteoblasts. So these are my osteoblasts, and they lay down the matrix. Inside of the lacunae, inside of the spaces, those are the osteocytes. You can see that we get the formation of the trabeculae here. So those are the trabeculae. Notice that the mesenchymal cells are still around the outside, right? And so we get the formation of, in flat bones, we have the compact bone, and then we have in the center, sandwiched between the compact bone, we have those that spongy bone. And the spaces in these bones actually have a name. They're called the diploe. And so there are spaces within the spongy bone that are formed by the trabeculae. So this is only in flat bones, whereas all of the other bones are formed through endochondral ossification.